There are not enough radicals for Palestine to lose us the election. But you know what there are? There are enough progressives who were really sketched out by what the DNC did in 2016 to Bernie Sanders. And I think that's a frustration of mine, that I know how Democrats act when it comes to progressives who are threatening their main choice. They position all the litigation, even if it's against democracy itself. Remember, they canceled the primary in Florida this time around. So they're not unwilling to lose their integrity over this. So why is it that they only use it for progressives and not for conservatives? See, what happened in 2016 was that the DNC basically sabotaged Bernie Sanders' campaign in order to get Hillary Clinton on the ticket as a favorite. Unfortunately, I see plenty of progressives who don't see a problem with that because he was going to lose anyways. However, in them sabotaging his damn ticket so that he lost faster, doesn't that look very sketchy? And the thing is that the DNC had the audacity to, during the court date of Wilding versus the DNC, where Bernie Sanders supporters sued the DNC for basically sabotaging his campaign. What they said was that while within the mandate of the Democratic Party, they position that they don't have a favorite. That's only a political mandate. It has no legal consequences if they chose to go against it. And the courts basically said that's unethical, but there are no legal consequences, so there's no case here. But instead of restoring that trust, what did they do? They swept it under the rug. You know who also swept something under the rug? Facebook. All they did was change their name to Meta, and they believed that that was going to help their reputation. It didn't, because people remember their Cambridge Analytica scandal, and people remember the 2016 scandal. And I do want to say that I voted for Hillary Clinton. I wasn't necessarily a fan of her, mostly because I find her to be very condescending, instead of actually positioning why Americans shouldn't believe a certain way. She just says, hey, they're just uneducated. When it came to Gaza and the G side, instead of saying, hey, there is no actual measurement in international law to position whether or not something is G side, so expecting for Biden or Harris to say that what's happening there is G side is just not going to happen, because there is no legal measurement to position that. And that's position and how the ICC did a warrant for war crimes, not for G side. Instead of saying this, which would have answered why they cannot do XYZ, she just said they're uneducated. It's very condescending, and it's not something new from Hillary Clinton. So she wasn't my favorite, yet I voted for her because I'm not chaotic, and I know that I have to vote for the lesser of two evils. Yes, I know that that's not how I should be voting. However, if it's the only options we have, I'm not going to go reckless and rogue and go against our progressive campaign, right? And then in 2020, they go ahead and give us Joe Biden, which I was not excited about. I have nothing necessarily at that time against Joe Biden, except that I felt like he was just gloating on the achievements of Barack Obama. That's literally what his whole campaign was I'm the vice president of Barack Obama. However, even throughout that, I knew him as his policies, such as the policies that he did in regards to making crack cocaine much more severe than cocaine, which basically puts black and Latino men in prison longer than white men. Ultimately, I didn't feel like he had a backbone, which I was correct. But I did vote for him because, was I gonna vote for Trump? No. But here's the thing, they continue the same political strategy in every reality to where they don't actually change it. Why? Because they don't think that they have to. Why? Because they know that we the people will just accept whichever progressive party we have, even if it's not the most progressive party. That's why the DNC had Kamala Harris go much more towards the center and to the right. When what happens, even if you get people from the right voting for president from the Democratic side, they're still going to vote red in local elections. And that's why they have the Congress, right? Because we didn't put that incentive for people to vote on local elections. And here's the thing, people will blame the voters, but if I'm making a service, right? Say I'm making food and you taste it and it's mid, you don't plan on coming back because there's other places who have better food. I should make better food. So why isn't the Democratic Party fixing and tailoring its platform and campaign to retain the members? They don't do that. And what Lori saying is true, that as long as we have money in politics, it's never going to change, because I've gone to lobby Sacramento before, and it doesn't matter whether you're lobbying for the right or for the left. If you're not a corporation, they're probably going to cancel on you. And we saw this, how Hakeem Jeffries is so significantly worried about our reality that instead of meeting with constituents like he should, he was meeting with Silicon Valley. In this reality, while I know that a lot of progressives feel very betrayed by the party, I know that after the swear in, I left the party, so I'm no party, but internally in my spirit, I still am a Democrat voter, if that makes sense, because within this experience, I've realized that while the Democratic leadership in Congress does not encompass the values that we hold at the bottom, it is the voters, it is the membership at the bottom who actually illuminate all of those values that should be held up at the top, but they don't. In that reality, the problem isn't the ideology, the problem is the coach, it's not the team. So while I have kind of touched upon maybe we need to replace the party, now I'm kind of thinking, why don't we just reclaim the party? You see, the Tea Party was able to get into the Republican Party and make it into a new party, the MAGA Party. Why is it that we cannot just fix the Democratic Party? And you're going to say, how? We all know how this is going to end. This is going to end from a civil unrest. In that reality, it would position for us to demand from the government that there be congressional special elections so that every single member in Congress has to go up for an election and be replaced if they do not win. Particularly those with MAGA ties will be banned under their participation in upholding this coup. So special elections will be needed no matter what. Within this reality, I would implore you to research the United Kingdom's shadow cabinet, because I think that's something that we can do right now where we can look at someone within our political reality, let's say my representative or my senator or even my governor, and if I do not believe they are doing a good job, then I would position myself to campaign against them so that if they make an X decision, I'm going to say, oh, this is why X is wrong and Y is right. And this is why my way would have been better. And as such, you're giving yourself recognition as having better policy than the one who's actually in government. In this way, we hold them accountable, but also we position that there's better choices than the ones who are career politicians. So by the time we do have special elections, it's much easier for one to transition into that role. And also people will be known because you've already positioned yourself within a reality where people are tired of the same political status quo within the Democratic Party. Yes, it is a movement to replace all the old guard Democrats with new people. Why? Because they failed. They failed because people give them grace because they're like, look what they're doing. And I've always said that the only Democrats who really matter will be those from our states. So when I see lists of things that Democrats have done and it's mostly filled with things that happen in a state, it's like, of course, what did federal government did? And they're like, oh, no one voted for Kennedy. Well, how did they vote for Mark Rubio? Because over 40 of them voted for Mark Rubio. So I think we have to start thinking of how rebuilding will look like right now, because the most dangerous thing during a constitutional crisis and afterwards is a political void where people don't know what exactly they want to replace what was lost. And I position, I mean, it's still the Constitution, but it's also, we build up on that. We fix that. Or, I mean, I don't know. I'm not the God who's going to make the decisions here. But it has to be position a reality where we're capable of actually resolving what was lost and actually making sure that it never occurs again. And the good thing about special elections is that the people who are voted in will be much more likely to vote for there to be a constitutional convention, which is what we need in order to fix all of this away from political decorum. So I think while we can acknowledge that this party doesn't work and hasn't worked for us, we have to kind of have a solution as to how we can push forward. And I think rather than just replacing it, it's probably a good idea to reclaim it. Because the voters didn't lose the election, assuming no fancy stuff, it was the strategy. The strategy that they've been recycling since 1978.